The unstoppable human warship emerges. The vast silence of space was shattered by the blaring alarms inside the Zorveth Dominion's capital warship, the Vortex Fang. Red warning lights flashed across the command deck, casting eerie shadows on the armored officers standing at their stations. Commander Vorkal, a hardened veteran of the Zorveth fleet, narrowed his reptilian eyes at the blinking radar screen. His sharp claws drummed against the metal console as he examined the strange, unidentified signal moving toward their sector. "Report," he growled, his deep voice cutting through the noise. A junior officer, barely keeping his fear in check, responded, "Commander, we have detected an incoming warship. No known identification codes. No response to our hails." Vorkal's scaled brow furrowed. An unknown warship, in Zorveth-controlled space. That was impossible. Every empire in this region knew better than to challenge the Dominion's fleet. "Show me the visual," he ordered. The main view screen flickered, and then the image appeared. At first, there was only darkness, the empty void of space. But then, emerging from the shadows like a ghost, the massive silhouette of a warship came into view. It was unlike anything the Zorveth had ever seen. Its hull was sleek, black as night, absorbing the faint light of distant stars. No insignia, no markings, just a silent behemoth drifting forward with unnatural purpose. Vorkal's chest tightened. Something was wrong. This ship, it wasn't behaving like an ordinary warship. "Run a full scan," he commanded. Another officer, his hands trembling over the controls, initiated the scan. The results flashed across the screens in an instant, and what they revealed made the entire bridge go silent. No weak points." One of the officers stammered. "That can't be right. Every ship has vulnerabilities." The scan displayed nothing useful. The warship had no energy leaks, no exposed engines, no apparent shields, but it was absorbing their scans as if it were a living thing. "Commander," another officer spoke in a hushed voice, I think it's a human ship." A cold wave of dread spread through the room. Humans. The stories about them were whispered in the dark corners of the galaxy. They were a young race, a species that should have been weak, should have been prey. And yet, they had risen through the stars like a wildfire, conquering, surviving, winning battles they had no right to win. The Zorveth Dominion had never fought humans before, but they had heard the warnings. Empires that had challenged them had disappeared. Vorkal forced himself to remain calm. "Open a channel," he said. "We will demand their surrender." The communications officer activated the ship's transmitter. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Vorkal of the Zorveth Dominion. You are trespassing in our space. Identify yourself immediately, or we will open fire." Silence. "Repeat the message," Vorkal ordered. Again, there was no response. The human ship just continued its slow, relentless approach. Vorkal clenched his fists. If the humans refused to speak, then they would speak through firepower. "All weapons, lock on target," he commanded. The Vortex Fang's heavy plasma cannons hummed to life, their targeting systems aligning with the silent warship. The Zorveth fleet around them followed suit, dozens of warships readying their weapons. Vorkal took one last look at the enemy vessel. It still hadn't made a single move. Was it waiting for something? No matter. He would not give it the chance. Fire. The space between the fleets erupted in bright light as a storm of plasma bolts and torpedoes raced toward the human warship. The Zorvath crew watched in grim satisfaction. No ship, no matter how advanced, could survive a direct assault from the Dominion's fleet. The weapon struck the human warship head-on. Explosions flared across its surface, engulfing it in fire and debris. The shockwaves echoed through space, shaking the nearby ships. A tense silence followed. Vorkal exhaled slowly. It was done. But then, the smoke cleared. The bridge went deadly quiet as the image on the screen sharpened. The human warship was completely untouched. Vorkal felt his stomach tighten. That's impossible. But it was real. The human ship hadn't even activated shields. It had simply taken the hit. And now it was moving again. Slowly at first, then faster. Vorkel's claws dug into the metal railing. He had seen many battles in his lifetime, but nothing compared to the terror rising in his chest now. The human warship wasn't just approaching. It was coming straight for them. "Commander," an officer whispered, panic in his voice. "It's locked onto us." A chilling realization settled over the bridge. The humans had just let them attack, to see how they would react. Now it was their turn to respond. Vorkel took a slow breath. The next few moments would determine whether the Zorveth Dominion would survive this day, or be wiped from existence. "Ready all defenses," he said, his voice quiet but firm. And then, for the first time in his long career, Commander Vorkel felt true fear. The first strike. A fatal mistake. The bridge of the Vortex Fang was eerily silent. The human warship continued its slow, deliberate advance, a dark shadow against the distant stars. Commander Vorkel clenched his fists. The Zorveth fleet had fired everything they had, and it had done nothing. The human ship hadn't even dodged. It simply took the hits and kept moving. This wasn't just technology. This was a message. Vorkel inhaled deeply. If conventional attacks had no effect, they needed a new strategy. "Prepare the disruptor cannons," he ordered. His weapons officer hesitated. "Commander, those are meant for planetary bombardments. If we fire." "Do it." A tense pause. Then the order was executed. A massive energy surge pulsed through the ship as the disruptor cannons powered up. Unlike plasma bolts, these weapons could tear through gravity fields, shields, and even warp drives. No ship had ever survived a direct hit. Vorkel watched the targeting screen lock onto the human warship. This was their last chance. Fire. A brilliant blast of white energy erupted from the Vortex Fang's cannons. The other Zorveth warships followed, unleashing their strongest weapons in unison. For a moment, space was filled with light and destruction. The energy beams tore through the void, colliding with the human ship in a direct impact. Silence. The Zorveth crew held their breath. Surely this had to work. The smoke and energy pulses faded, and the human warship was still there, untouched. Vorkel's blood ran cold. No, it was impossible. No ship should have survived that. The disruptor cannons had vaporized entire fleets before. Why was this one different? Then the human ship responded. No flash of light, no grand attack, just one single precise energy beam. It was silent, almost lazy. But the moment it hit, the Zorveth ships exploded. Not damaged, not disabled, destroyed. One ship vanished in an instant, its atoms ripped apart before it could even send a distress signal. Another ship, one of their strongest destroyers, split in two, metal and bodies drifting lifelessly into space. The bridge of the Vortex Fang trembled as alarms blared. "We've lost the Blood Fang, the Shadow Claw, and the Iron Rain," a panicked officer reported. 3 ships. Gone in a single shot. Vorkel's mind raced. How? Their sensors didn't even detect a traditional energy signature. It was like the human weapon didn't just destroy. It erased. "This isn't a battle," Vorkel muttered. "This is a massacre." The realization struck everyone on the bridge at the same time. They were not fighting the humans. They were being tested. The human warship could have wiped them all out instantly, but it didn't. It was playing with them. A message appeared on the main screen. It was short, and it was in their own language. "Leave or die." Vorkel's claws tightened on the railing. He had spent his entire life fighting and winning wars, but now, for the first time, he wasn't sure if they could even escape. "Commander," an officer's voice trembled. What do we do?" Vorkel's eyes remained locked on the human warship. It had given them a choice. Would the Zorveth retreat, or would they make the biggest mistake of their existence? The truth about humans. The bridge of the Vortex Fang was a scene of chaos. Officers frantically typed on control panels, trying to find a weakness in the human warship. The surviving Zorveth ships drifted in silence, their captains too afraid to make the next move. But Commander Vorkal knew the truth now. The humans weren't just powerful. They were beyond anything the Zorveth Dominion had ever faced. And the worst part, they were holding back. The single shot that had destroyed 3 warships could have wiped out the entire fleet. But the humans had stopped. They wanted the Zorvath to understand something first. Leave or die. Vorkal turned to his intelligence officer. Tell me everything we know about humans. The young officer hesitated. Commander, I don't think we have enough data. The records are incomplete. Then give me what we do have, Vorkal snapped. The officer gulped and pulled up the files. The screen flickered, displaying scattered reports from other empires that had encountered humans. Vorkal scanned the reports, his heart pounding with every word. Warships, human expansion. Rapid technological growth. Humans adapt faster than any known species. Unpredictable warfare tactics. They do not follow standard battle formations. Extremely high survival rate. They thrive in environments lethal to other species. Vorkal's claws dug into the console as he read the final line. The human ships moved like nothing he had ever seen. Their weapons didn't just fire energy blasts. They tore through shields as if they weren't even there. Their soldiers boarded enemy ships and overran them in seconds. The final moments of the battle showed a Krell command ship attempting to flee. The human fleet had let them. For exactly 30 seconds. Then, a single human warship had pursued and vaporized it in an instant. The message was clear. Humans do not forgive. They do not forget. And once you make an enemy of them, they do not stop. Vorkal turned off the screen, his breathing heavy. The Zorveth Dominion had never fought humans before, and now they were one decision away from extinction. He looked back at the view screen. The human warship was still there, waiting. Leave or die. The choice was his. Would he surrender the Dominion's pride or risk everything and fight? The desperate escape plan. The bridge of the Vortex Fang was filled with an oppressive silence. The human warship still loomed in the void, unmoving, its presence more terrifying than any weapon the Zorveth Dominion had ever encountered. Commander Vorkal gritted his teeth. His mind raced. Every instinct told him to fight, to uphold the honor of the Dominion. But the truth was clear now. They could not win. The Zorveth fleet had fired their strongest weapons. Nothing worked. The humans had retaliated with one shot, and it had wiped out 3 warships instantly. Leave or die. The words still glowed on the command screen. Vorkal clenched his fists. He had to decide now. The fleet's growing fear. His officers exchanged nervous glances. They were warriors. They had fought many battles. But this was different. One of his senior officers, Turak, stepped forward, his voice unsteady. Commander, Turak said, we should consider retreat. Vorkal's eyes snapped to him. Retreat? He spat the word as if it was poison. Turak swallowed hard but stood firm. We are not dealing with an enemy we understand. If we fight, we die. Another officer hesitated before speaking. Sir, if the humans let us leave, we should take the chance. Vorkal's claws tightened against the console. Cowards. That's what they sounded like. The mighty Zorveth, fleeing like prey. But he looked at the screen again. That one warship had already done more damage than an entire fleet. The Zorveth were not the hunters anymore. They were the hunted. The problem. No escape route. Vorkal exhaled sharply. Even if we retreat, how do we escape? The human ship is blocking our exit path. The navigation officer quickly pulled up a star map. We could try warping away, but a new alarm blared. The officer's eyes widened. Commander, the humans have jammed our warp drives. The realization sank in like ice. They weren't just trapped. They were at the humans' mercy. Vorkel's mind raced. The humans were testing them, giving them a choice. But what if they changed their minds? What if they decided that Zorvith were too dangerous to be left alive? He had minutes, maybe seconds, to act. The final strategy. Vorkel straightened. We send a surrender signal. Gasps rippled across the bridge. Surrender. One of his lieutenants, a proud warrior, snarled. Commander, you would disgrace the Dominion by bowing to these apes. Vorkel's glare silenced him instantly. This is not about pride, Vorkel said coldly. This is about survival. If we fight, we lose everything. If we retreat, we live. His officers hesitated. Some still burned with the desire for battle. But deep down, they knew the truth. The Dominion had never faced a predator like this. Vorkel turned back to the communications officer. Send the message. The officer's claws trembled as he typed. To human warship, we acknowledge your strength. We will leave. We request permission to withdraw. The message was sent. The bridge fell silent once again. Everyone watched the view screen, waiting for the humans' answer. The humans respond. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then another. Nothing. Vorkel's breathing grew heavier. What if this was a trap? What if the humans had never planned to let them leave? Finally, a single message appeared on the screen. You may go. Do not return. A collective exhale of relief filled the bridge. Vorkel wasted no time. All ships, begin emergency retreat maneuvers. Move away from the human vessel. Slowly. Do not show aggression. The Zorvith fleet turned and fled. As they moved away, Vorkel never took his eyes off the human warship. It did not follow. It did not attack. It simply watched, as if it was making sure they had learned their lesson. Vorkel's final thoughts. As the Vortex Fang warped into safe space, Vorkel slumped into his command chair. For the first time in his career, he had retreated. And for the first time, he realized something chilling. The Zorvath had always believed they were the dominant species in the galaxy. They were wrong. The humans, they were something else entirely. And now, the Dominion knew the truth. If they ever crossed paths with the humans again, there would be no mercy. A choice between survival and honor. The Zorvith fleet emerged from warp space, battered but intact. The cold silence of the void surrounded them, but no one on the Vortex Fang felt relief. They had escaped, but the shame of it clawed at their souls. Commander Vorkel sat in his command chair, staring at the blank view screen. His officers moved around the bridge in silence. No cheers, no celebrations. They had survived, but they had also fled like prey. And now, the question remained. The debate begins. Captain Turak stepped forward, his voice tense. Commander, we need to report this to High Command. The humans. He hesitated, as if the words themselves were cursed. They're more dangerous than we ever imagined. Vorkel's claws drummed against the metal armrest. And what will we tell them, Turak? That the great Zorvith Dominion was humbled by one warship. Turak stiffened. The truth. A murmur ran through the officers. Some nodded in agreement. Others bristled at the suggestion. The Dominion had never retreated before. To report this defeat would be humiliating. A senior weapons officer snarled. We should go back. We only lost because we weren't prepared. If we send a full battle group, we can overwhelm them. Vorkel turned his cold gaze to him. You still don't understand, do you? His voice was quiet, dangerous. That was not a battle. It was a warning. The officer hesitated. But Vorkel cut him off. They could have destroyed us the moment we fired. They let us leave. Why? Because they didn't see us as a threat. He leaned forward, his golden eyes burning. You want to go back. You want to fight. Then prepare to watch the entire Dominion burn. The officer fell silent. Turak nodded grimly. Commander, I agree. The humans are beyond us. The Dominion must know. But then, a voice from the shadows. The Dominion must know, or must the Dominion be protected from this truth? The whisper of rebellion. Everyone turned. Admiral Vorlish, a decorated war leader, stood near the rear of the bridge. His red war cloak draped over his shoulders, his reptilian face locked in a thoughtful expression. Vorkal narrowed his eyes. Explain. Vorlish stepped forward. His voice was calm, but dangerous. If we return and report what happened, what do you think will happen? He gestured at the silent officers. The High Command will never accept this. They will see it as weakness. Vorkal remained still. They will demand retaliation, Vorlish continued. And if they send an armada against the humans, he paused. Then he whispered, there will be no Dominion left to rule. A heavy silence followed his words. Vorkal's mind turned. He knew Vorlish was right. The Dominion's leaders were proud, arrogant. They would never believe in human superiority until it was too late. And by then, they would be nothing but ash. The impossible decision. Vorkal rose from his seat. His officers waited, tense. We have two options, he said. We return and report the truth, and risk the Dominion marching to its death. His voice darkened. Or, we alter the report. The idea stung in his chest. To lie to the High Command. To betray the Dominion for its own survival. Unthinkable. And yet, necessary. Tirak shifted uneasily. Commander, you would risk deception. Vorkal's voice was firm. I would risk everything to ensure we live. Vorlish nodded approvingly. Then we say this. We encountered an unidentified warship. It was powerful, but we drove it away. We lost ships, but the enemy took losses as well. The officers exchanged glances. A lie. But a lie that might save the Dominion. Tirak exhaled slowly. And if the humans return? Vorkal's expression was grim. Then the Dominion will learn the truth the hard way. A final silence settled over the bridge. The decision had been made. A new enemy. As the fleet prepared for their return, Vorkal cast one last glance at the empty void behind them. The humans had let them leave, but they would never forget. And one day, the Zorveth Dominion would have to face the unstoppable force they had discovered today. The humans were here. And this was only the beginning. The final decision, and the last warning. The Zorveth fleet drifted in silence as the decision weighed heavily on every officer. Lie or tell the truth. Retreat with honor or risk the Dominion's extinction. Commander Vorkal stood in the center of the bridge, his golden eyes staring at the stars. He had made his choice. They would hide the truth. But deep inside, he knew the truth would not stay hidden forever. Preparing the official report, Admiral Vorlish leaned against the command console, his expression unreadable. We need to be careful. If the High Command senses deception, we will be executed for treason. Vorkal exhaled sharply. Then we make the report believable. He turned to the intelligence officer. Log this. We encountered an unknown hostile warship near the outer sector. It displayed advanced weaponry and heavy shielding. We engaged in combat and suffered losses, but the enemy was driven away. We recommend strengthening our borders in case of future encounters. The officer hesitated. Commander, this means the Dominion will still prepare for war. Vorkal's eyes darkened. Yes, but it buys us time. Time to prepare. Time to learn more. The officer nodded and began compiling the official transmission. The Zorveth Dominion had survived this day, but the war had already begun. The last human message. Just as the transmission was finalized, an alert blared across the bridge. Incoming message. Every officer froze. It was from the human warship. A single line appeared on the screen. We let you live today. Do not mistake it for weakness. A cold chill ran through the Zorveth crew. The humans, they had known all along. They knew the Zorveth would return home and lie. They knew the Dominion would try to fight again. But this was a final warning. Vorkal exhaled slowly. closed the channel. The screen flickered to black. He turned to his crew. "We move out. Now." The journey back to the Dominion. As the Zorveth fleet prepared to jump to warp, Vorkal sat alone in his chamber, staring at the report. His claws hovered over the console. Something inside him wanted to tell the truth, to warn the Dominion that their empire was nothing compared to the force that awaited them in the stars. But he also knew the truth was a death sentence. The High Command would never believe it. And worse, they might provoke the humans. No, the Zorveth would find out, one day, just how small they really were. But not today. Today, he would keep them alive. The fleet jumped into warp, leaving behind the sector where they had faced the impossible, where they had seen true power, the final reckoning, a war inevitable. The Zorveth fleet returned to the Dominion homeworld under the cover of night. Their arrival met with silence instead of the usual fanfare. The High Command had already received the doctored report, and they had summoned Commander Vorkal for immediate debriefing. As he stepped into the massive war chamber, the air was thick with tension. The warlords of the Dominion, powerful figures who had ruled for centuries, sat in a semicircle, their piercing eyes locked onto him. At the center sat Grand Warlord Selzor, his crimson war cloak draped over his broad shoulders. His deep voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Commander Vorkal," he said slowly, "explain to us why your fleet returned weakened." Vorkal bowed his head. "We engaged an unknown enemy vessel, Warlord, a powerful one. We suffered losses, but we forced it to retreat." Zelzor's eyes narrowed. "Retreat." He leaned forward. "Our mighty Dominion forces failed to crush a single warship." Vorkal fought to keep his expression neutral. "The enemy was advanced, stronger than anticipated, but they will think twice before crossing us again." The chamber fell into a hushed murmur. Some warlords exchanged uncertain glances, while others sneered in disgust. One, an aging but battle-hardened general, scoffed. "I expected victory, not excuses." Another warlord growled, "This is unacceptable. We should launch an invasion force immediately. We will burn this enemy's homeworld to the ground." Vorkal felt a cold weight settle in his chest. They had learned nothing. The voice of reason, and the call for war. Admiral Vorlish, standing behind Vorkal, stepped forward. "Grand Warlord," he said cautiously, "perhaps we should exercise patience. We still know little about this enemy." Zelzor's gaze turned sharp. "Patience? You expect us to cower before a single ship?" "No," Vorlish replied carefully. "But we should consider the possibility that this enemy is different. A direct war could be." A younger warlord slammed his fist against the table. "Enough of this cowardice. We are the Zorveth Dominion. We do not fear the unknown." The chamber erupted into heated arguments. Some called for war. Others warned of caution. Vorkal remained silent, his mind racing. This was exactly what the humans had predicted. A fateful decision. Kelzor raised a hand, and the room fell silent. His eyes locked onto Vorkal. "We will not sit idly while an enemy lurks in the shadows," he said firmly. A pause. Then he spoke the words Vorkal had dreaded. "The Dominion will prepare for war." Vorkal's blood ran cold. He had tried to stop this. He had given them a false victory to delay the inevitable. But the arrogance of the Dominion was unshakable. They would not heed the warning. And when that day came, the Dominion would burn. The final warning. And a foreboding future. That night, as Vorkal stood alone in his quarters, a message flickered onto his private console. It was from an unknown sender. "You tried to stop them. You failed. We will be waiting." His breath caught in his throat. The humans had intercepted their communications. They had known from the beginning what the Zorveth would do. And now, they were waiting. Vorkal clenched his fists. He had done everything he could. He had delayed the war, but not even he could stop what was coming. The next time the Zorveth and humans met, it would not be a warning. It would be the end. The war was inevitable, and the Zorvath had already lost.